today on Head Coach.
My wife and I lived as slaves in a private residence. She was the maid, I was the butler, and we both did housekeeping and childcare and lawn and pool. I felt like it was time for me to get out and see if I could do it as a head coach, and I'd never been a head coach before. Yes, this is awesome, but it's still 94 feet, and it's still coaching the game, and even if it was in front of 3,000 people instead of 23,000 people, I was okay with it, and so I jumped into it. And I'm going in the same living room that Billy Donovan's coming in right afterwards, and Roy Williams just left, and Mike Krzyzewski's coming to next week. And how can I even compare? And I can't. I tell people it's not the end result, it's the process. And it's the blood, sweat, and the tears, and it's the things that you had to do along the way to get there, and yet I'm not here yet. You know, I'm still getting there. The future was Bruce Pearl and Tennessee a one-year wonder? You know, is this something that's we can count on?
Coach's Fact is proudly brought to you by OnTrack Incorporated, the leader in fiber-to-the-home connectivity. Bruce Pearl has experienced success on several different levels of competition. In Division II at the University of Southern Indiana, he led the Screaming Eagles to 9 NCAA Division II tournaments, including a national championship in '95 and a runner-up finish in '94. At the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, he coached the Panthers to the Sweet 16 of the '05 NCAA tournament.
Coach, first and foremost, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here overlooking a beautiful location.
You know, as I sit up here with you, this is one spot in the arena I don't think I've ever been. Not a bad seat from up here. But
no, you could sell this seat, couldn't you? You could.
We've sold a lot of seats, but as I look at this place, I sometimes wonder, I can't believe I'm here. And I can't believe that I'm coaching at Tennessee and coaching in the SEC, and I've worked in a lot of buildings before, but none quite like this.
Well, wasn't this your goal? I mean, isn't this where you're striving to go? And once you get there, do you still have that I can't believe it feeling?
You know, that would sound really good, and yet I don't know that it was. I think my goal was just to be able to coach. Yeah, to coach at the highest level, but if the highest level was Division II, and I could be successful and make a difference in young people's lives and win championships, represent the game well, that was going to be okay with me. But then once I got there and I did it, I said to myself, you need to keep challenging yourself, because you do challenge the young people to be the best they can be. And so that's sort of what's propelled me to try to move up, is that's what I try to get my young people to do. Don't settle. Sure. And yet, you know, I think I'd still be okay if I was coaching at a lower level.
Huh. Well, that's impressive. Not many people are that way. That is impressive. Now, take me right now, just kind of through the journey. I mean, you started, a lot of people don't know how long you've been in coaching, but it's been a long time. What drew you to coaching?
I love sport, and I love to compete. I remember I was a pretty good athlete when I was younger, and I had just some career-ending knee injuries in high school that really prevented me from fulfilling my dream of being a college scholarship athlete in football or basketball. And I think those things changed my life forever, because it made me do something more than just athletics. I think it made me a better person. It made me more well-rounded. But I believe I was supposed to do what I'm doing right now, because even when I was in college and I was a walk-on at Boston College, practiced occasionally and was a manager, whatever, I always went back home and I always coached. I mean, I always coached. Youth baseball, youth football, youth basketball, refereed, umpired. In fact, some people still think I refereed. and so I guess I've just been doing it my whole life. And so not always are you fortunate enough to be able to do what you were called to do.
Now, you had a special mentor Talk to me about that relationship.
Well, I mean, I always tell people, if you're any good at what you do, chances are you had a pretty good teacher. And I was just so fortunate to go to Boston College and be with Tom Davis. And when I say that, I mean in more ways than just the basketball. He's a brilliant basketball technician. I'm talking about an innovator. But off the court, he was so patient, he was so tolerant, he was so brilliant as it related to how he dealt with the players and things like that. I really felt like he got the most out of his staff and the people that he worked with. And just by being around him, I just tried to soak up as much as I possibly could. And yet all the time I was at BC as a student, I never thought that I'd be in coaching. I was just doing it because I love BC, I love basketball, and wanted to help them be successful.
How did you two meet? How did the connection occur?
My brother, Bruce, went to Boston College, as did my brother. He played for Tom Davis. Bruce at the time was just like a student manager, marketing, all that kind of stuff at Boston College. And we met, surprisingly enough, at a basketball game.
Think of that.
I know. Can you see? It's amazing.
And then how did the connection occur? How did you know he was the right one?
Just like that.
Is that right?
Yeah. My mother said I watched it happen, and I knew you were going to marry that person, and we got married 8 months later.
Wow. You had no idea you were going to go into coaching.
No.
You were just, is that right?
No,
Oh my
I
goodness.
had no idea that that's what I would do. Because when I graduated from Boston College, Tom took the job at Stanford. And in my senior year, as I was interviewing to do something else, Tom brought me in and said, I'm going to be going to Stanford, and I want you to come with me. And I thought, well, I can always get a real job. Sure, well, let's go.
Now, you were 22 years old.
22 years old.
You obviously knew that you were going to be the wife of a basketball coach coming into
Well,
this.
actually, no, he was going to be a salesman.
Is that right?
Yeah, before he graduated from college, he was going to go into like medical supply sales or, Procter & Gamble, that kind of thing. And when Tom took the Stanford job, he asked him to come as a part-time assistant. Part-time assistants get paid September to May at the time, and then you don't get any money in the summer. And we decided to get married.
And I was the part-time assistant at Stanford, made $8,000. My wife and I lived as slaves in a private residence. She was the maid, I was the butler, and we both did housekeeping and childcare and lawn and pool, and that's the way we could afford to live in Palo Alto for a year and get married. And then my second year, at 23 years old, I was promoted to associate head coach.
You look back over your whole career, it's probably those moments that are most special, aren't they? When you're just struggling. Once you hit this pinnacle, you got to look back and just say that was the best of times.
Well, it's always, I tell people, it's not the end result, it's the process. And it's the blood, sweat, and the tears, and it's the things that you had to do along the way to get there, and yet I'm not here yet. I'm still getting there. I think one of the things that I hope will make me an effective coach is that I know I don't know it all, and I know I've got to continue to grow and got to continue to learn. And I've been able to do that, throughout my career. But certainly, you remember when you first get started, and I'm very, very grateful to Tom, for giving me this opportunity.
How did your Division II job come about?
I had been an assistant coach at Stanford and Boston College a little bit, and then at the University of Iowa. And at about, when I started to get to about 30, 31, 32, I've been with Tom for a while. I felt like it was time for me to get out and see if I could do it as a head coach. And I'd never been a head coach before.
Your first job and was in Indiana. Tell me about him getting the first job. Was there this huge level of excitement? How did that occur?
No, every time we get a new job, he just gets really intense and nervous, and I've got a lot of work to do, and you got to win, which, that's just pretty universal,
Sure.
no matter what you coach. So and then the minute he gets a job, he goes, like that day, accepts a job, and he's gone.
And when the University of Southern Indiana job came open, it was a program that had been down, but it was in Indiana. And I knew how special basketball was in Indiana. And I went there, and I think it sort of fit with what I said before. Yes, this is awesome, but it's still 94 feet. and it's still coaching the game. And even if it was in front of 3,000 people instead of 23,000 people, I was okay with it. And so I jumped into it.
Well, you know, I've known Bruce for over 20 years now. He coached my brother, Bill, at the University of Iowa when he was an assistant under Tom Davis. And he helped my brother with his individual workouts, with you know, a lot of the tutoring that goes into a coach and a student athlete. And that's when we developed our relationship. And then I used to work their basketball camps when I was a high school coach back in the 80s. And we always told each other or discussed with each other that if one of us gets a high-level job or a job in Division I coaching, that we wanted to someday work with each other.
So my becoming a head coach at Division II level, you know, we had to build a fan base, we had to connect with the students, we had to do all the things we had to do to make basketball important in that town, in a town where Indiana, Evansville was there at a Division I school right in town, and so we had to do some other things to try to build our program.
Well, not to mention you won a national championship in D2. That's not bad.
Well, winning a national championship at any level, I think, is special.
It's pretty astounding, yeah.
It was awesome, and we finished second my second year. I don't think there's any question the fact that we got that point helped us, you know, win it all the following year, and we were able to say, hey, we've been here before, you know, we're in it to win it, and and certainly, I mean, I just feel so fortunate, so blessed. So many great college players and great coaches, for that matter, have never been able to play in a Final Four or an Elite Eight even, or let alone, you know, playing a couple national championship games.
Coming up next on Head Coach.
And I drove to Milwaukee every other weekend, because I'd go home every other weekend to visit the family. I'd get in the car and I'd cry for hours going, what have I done? You know, what have I done to my family? What have I done to my kids?
Coach's Fact is proudly brought to you by Pilot Travel Centers. Pilot is crazy about coffee. In 14 seasons as a head coach, Bruce Pearl has compiled a 339-92 record. His teams have received postseason bids 13 times and have advanced to the Sweet 16 of NCAA tournaments 7 times. He became one of the fastest coaches in NCAA history to reach the 300-win mark. Pearl needed just 382 games to reach 300, second only to Roy Williams.
Then you went from D2, you went to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, had great success there. Tell me about those years. What were those years like?
It was hard leaving Evansville, Indiana. I've been there 9 years, raised some of my kids, pretty formative years, made lots of friends, and I was comfortable. And I knew every year we were going to win 20 plus, and so it was really difficult.
Scary?
It was very scary.
Yeah.
It was very scary. And I drove to Milwaukee every other weekend, because I'd go home every other weekend to visit the family. I'd get in the car and I'd cry for hours going, what have I done? You know, what have I done to my family? What have I done to my kids?
It was a trauma for him, for my children. Two of my kids were born in Indiana, and the other two, my older two, were little. They were 4 and 6 when we moved here, and it's all they knew.
But fortunately, it's never been a journey I've had to go alone. I had Kim and I had my kids, and as long as they could come with me, I felt like I could do it. I could do it. I was the one that couldn't leave and couldn't break the roots. Fortunately, Kim probably had more confidence in me than I had in myself. And she knew I could do it. And I wasn't afraid to fail. I tie in so closely to community and to kids that I could never find the right time to leave. And Wisconsin, Milwaukee wasn't that much better than Southern Indiana, but it was Division I. It was the next step.
You can't be successful unless you give your heart to your kids. And he gives his heart to our players at every place, every place. So, you know, Indiana, a couple of them wanted to go with us. Can we come?
Is that right?
And he goes, no, that's not right. That's unethical. I can't do that. I can't take the team. You know, that would be wrong.
There was a larger Jewish population in Milwaukee, and that was an attractive thing to me, just from the standpoint of giving my children the exposure they've had, because we lived in college towns that didn't quite have that diversity and ethnicity. that was both religious, social, ethnic. And so there were lots of good reasons to go to Milwaukee that was more than just the job. But what happened at Southern Indiana, at some point after 9 years, I began to contradict myself. Because I've told my players, you got to be the best you can be at everything you do, and let's enjoy the process. And at some point I was settling, and I wasn't being the best I could be. And so that let me make the move, along with the support of my family. And you know what? I thank God now every day that I did it. Because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be the head coach at the University of Tennessee.
Well, I think anytime you're an athletic director, you need to be prepared for the inevitability that you might have to make a change. And so you sort of have a group of people you follow, and you look at what they're doing around the country. And so head knowledge would tell you that Bruce Pearl had won almost 80% of his games. He'd won over 300 games. I think the second fastest over 300 wins in the NCAA history behind Roy Williams, and had done that at a couple of places that were maybe didn't have the resources that Tennessee has, Southern Indiana and Wisconsin, Milwaukee. But at the same time, he had coached at Boston College and at Stanford and Iowa, and understood what those type programs have to be success. So on the front end, what draws you to Bruce Pearl is his success and the winning percentage at a lot of different places.
You know, when you're a coach, you try to teach your kids to be unselfish and play like a team player, and then when you leave them, you sort of break that rule. Same thing happened for me at Milwaukee. You know, how could you leave those kids? I had 7 seniors that were to return. But at that point, it was actually easier. I'd only been in Milwaukee 4 years. I did everything that they asked me to do.
Our kids in Milwaukee were devastated because the majority were going to be seniors, and we're thinking that Bruce was their coach their senior year, and we left, and you know, they're angry and they're hurt, and it's, you know, it's like a divorce, like a little mini divorce, even though it isn't. Now we talk to those kids all the time. They call all the time.
Is that right?
Well, they're ours.
And I just felt like, okay, I can represent UWM here at Tennessee just as well, because now I can be on a national stage. And I felt that those kids that I left at Milwaukee, they would be fine without me. They were such a solid group, and they went back to the NCAA tournament without me. So, you know, without what we did at Milwaukee, without a Sweet 16 run, without them, I'm not here. And so, but I do think they understood, and I was honest, completely honest with them. They were part of the process right from the very, very beginning.
The transition that you made to UT happened fairly quickly, didn't it?
It did.
Was it difficult because it was so fast, or was it easier?
No, it was difficult. It was very hard, very hard. He said that Mike had called and wanted to interview, and you know, what do I do? Because I think the night before we just finished our tournament run at Wisconsin.
Yep.
First time that Bruce and I had the opportunity to talk was Chicago, Illinois, the day after they had just lost a heartbreaker to Illinois in the Sweet 16. And the first thing he told me when I called him that morning after having talked to his athletic director was, hey, I'd like to have a couple hours to have my team be able to get on the bus, and I want to see them off.
We promised we would not move before he finished high school. We promised him that because Indiana to Milwaukee was so hard. We promised him that he would finish high school in Milwaukee.
Then he came to the meeting shortly after lunch there in Chicago, and one of the first things he said to me was, I almost didn't come today. So you can imagine how that sort of catches you off guard. And,
Yeah, sure.
And you ask, okay, well, what was the story on that? And at the time, Stephen was a rising senior in high school and going to be finishing up in Milwaukee. And that morning was the first time he had spoken with his family about the possibility of coming to the University of Tennessee. And that was obviously a very emotional time.
Stephen was going to be a senior, and here's this job. Yeah, how do you turn this down?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, but if Stephen was uncomfortable, I mean, it's possible that we either would have left him there, which I didn't want to do.
With Stephen, again, getting ready to graduate high school, and basically Bruce said, you know, this is about us as a family, and if it's not meant for us as a family to do it as a family, then, you know, I'll call Mike back and just tell him, you know, I'm going to have other opportunities, and you're more important to me than any job.
But he was great. He's like, take it, Dad. I'm right with you. Well.
Is that right? When I talked with Bruce, it seemed to me that Stephen was the linchpin. Is that kind of the final decision?
Yeah, because ultimately it was his.
Is that right?
Ultimately it was Stephen's. If he was going to be absolutely devastated and miserable, then no, things might have turned out differently. But He's a coach's kid. He's adaptable. He flies by the seat of his pants just like we do, and he was great about it.
That's the first story he told me when he came to the hotel. And so like, automatically you say, this guy, again, if you want a coach who can relate to his student athletes, who's going to treat them like family, and so if he treats his own family, if his family is more important than the job, as it should be with all of us.
Yeah.
Some of us lose perspective on that from time to time.
Sure.
But it made a statement to me that in this first time that he'd ever met me, Mike Hamilton, in an interview, that's the first thing he told me. And that really, for other ADs, maybe that didn't resonate with them. But for me and what I wanted in a basketball coach, that really resonated with me.
I tell people I was poor for 44 years, and now I'm making a wonderful living and able to do something for my family that I didn't necessarily set out to do. And so I like this job, and I'm going to work really hard to keep this job. And
you're really good at this job.
Well, I want to. They pay me a lot of money. I don't know if you read that, but
maybe.
I got quite a salary, and somehow I want people to be able to say I'm earning it. That I know it's crazy to think, but this guy's actually earning his living.
Coming up next on Head Coach.
I'm very visible because we're on television all the time. We coach basketball, but I'm not very important. I'm no more important than my son's 6th grade teacher.
Coach's Fact is proudly brought to you by OnTrack Incorporated, the leader in fiber-to-the-home connectivity. Pearl brought an exciting brand of basketball to Tennessee. In his first year at UT, his teams led the SEC in scoring offense, assists, steals, turnover margin, and three-point field goals made. The Vols won 22 games, won the SEC Eastern Division title, swept National Championship Florida in the regular season competition, and earned a number 2 seed in the '06 NCAA tournament.
I believe we needed sort of the right person at the right time. We needed a coach that obviously had on-court success, was passionate about his student athletes, passionate about promoting the product in the community, and was had an effervescence about him because, frankly, there were a lot of doubters out there. There were doubters out there nationally as to whether or not Tennessee can have the kind of success that I expect us to have and our fans expect us to have.
Obviously, you've been a part of building other programs with him, in Milwaukee and elsewhere. He is a program builder, isn't he?
No question, he's a program builder. He starts off from the ground floor and builds it up almost to the penthouse. He starts it off grassroots with the students, and that's first and foremost to create the energy of the students, the enthusiasm of the students. And he's gone into people's classroom, he's gone to the lunch room on campuses, and he stands up on the tables and chairs in the cafeteria, and he sells and promotes the program. That's what he did in Milwaukee, that's what he did when we got to Tennessee.
He's got an innate ability to relate to so many different demographic mixes. Whether it's, as you said, the student and standing on the cafeteria table to encourage you to come to the game tonight, or going and talking to the 5 little old ladies in a quilting club at the retirement home. And he's going to make you feel good about Tennessee basketball and about you want to support him as well as supporting University of Tennessee after you've been with him. Yeah, because he's so passionate about it.
Our first regular season game, when 21,000 people showed up to Thompson Bowling, as we're walking back to the locker room, I tell the guys to stop. We've got to do something to tell these people how much we appreciate them. I said, get to the exits, get to the doors, run up to the concourse and get to the doors, and you shake as many hands as you possibly can.
Is that right?
And you thank them for coming. Because they're our customers, and you look at anything and it's about customer service. Serve them by how you play. Serve them that when they leave here, they won't ever think that you got outworked or that you got out hustled. And make sure they understand how much you appreciate their being here.
Wow, what a great concept.
Well, it's the truth. It's just the bottom line.
One of my most favorite moments in all, I guess, of the sporting year in '05 was watching on the news when you went out before the Florida game, addressed the students. How many pizzas did you bring out? There was like stacks and stacks of pizza. And just stood up there and thanked them and said, we're going to kick their butt.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know the camera was on me when I said something about the fact that we're going to kick their butt. That was not the right thing. But I was talking to students, trying to get them fired up, and so I felt like
It worked.
They deserved that. As an institution, you have to deserve victory. If people come here and there are 5,000 people in a 20,000 seat arena, does that program deserve victory? And so you got to convince the fans that they've got to do their part. I've got to do my part in coaching. The players have got to do their part, and everybody put together. And I think the other thing is to make sure people, I don't expect their support, but I sure want them to know how much I appreciate it.
When you look at the turnaround, I mean, you've gone up 5,000 people in attendance per game on average.
Right.
I mean, that's huge. You're fifth, isn't it fifth? I mean,
Fifth in the nation in attendance. We went from 13,000 in the year preceding Bruce to 18,000, and then in league play we went to 21,000 in average attendance. And so, I think that we'll continue to see a surge in attendance.
Not only am I at a place where I can compete for a national championship at the Division I level, I'm at a place where I'm able to be on a coaching staff with some of the greatest coaches that have ever coached the game. Pat Summitt is the greatest basketball coach of all time. To be able to be in her company, to try and gain her respect, to listen and learn from her, and the same thing true of Coach Fulmer. If my son played football, I'd want him to play for Philip Fulmer because of the kind of man he is and the kind of men he surrounds himself with in that coaching staff. And my biggest challenge when I came into Tennessee was to earn their respect and trust and to try to hold up our end in men's basketball.
how has it been kind of being brought into the fold of the other coaching families here?
Everybody here, Philip and Vicki, Pat and her son, are just took us in and made us feel at home, and they're wonderful people. They really are.
What's the character of Bruce Pearl like? What is he as a man? What's inside in the heart?
First of all, he's a devoted family man. 2 boys, 2 girls. One of his sons, Stephen, actually his oldest son, Stephen, be a member of our basketball team this year. But first and foremost, he's a family man. He very, very spiritual, religious, has deep convictions about how things should operate, not only with his basketball program, but within his family, within his religion.
Growing up being a minority, being Jewish, there's a tendency to hide from it because you are in the minority. And because some 50 years ago, this world had a madman who tried to kill us because we're Jewish, because we prayed to a God a certain way. And so I just always try to wear it on my sleeve. I'm proud of who I am. I want people to know who I am. If it hurts me in recruiting because there is some sort of a stigma that's negative, then fine. It's out there. But I love God, and you talk about being inadequate. I fail him every day with just not.
Don't we all?
Yeah, we do. We do. And yet it's trying to do the nachos, the good deeds that overwhelm me, and so faith is a big part, of what I do. I don't force my faith on anybody, and I'm not threatened by anybody else's faith. I realize that my faith is not theirs. So I want my guys to pray the way they want to pray.
The thing that I would tell you is, you said you can't fake it. It's real. It's not a show. I've been around him enough to have been able to determine if there was any fraud there, and it's not. There's not. He's a genuine person who, when the energy that you see from him is how he is 24/7, 365.
The character that I see in him.
He's a character as well.
He is a character. Yeah. And I tell you talking about being a salesman, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. He's just got it. And but I also see such an honesty and an openness and a deep character that, is that how he is? I mean, is that just him? What you see is what you get?
Just part of what he is, who he is. Always been that way, always, since I met him.
Coach, it just seems like as we talk, your character just your passion and your character just pours through. How do you take your values and your character and translate it into your kids and your program?
Well, I feel like, as a teacher, I've got a real responsibility. And I can't tell you how inadequate I feel because the importance of the job. And I feel like if I don't save every single one of them, not that they need to be saved, but some of them do, and or get each one of them to absolutely reach their greatest potential in the classroom, off the court, with their lives, I failed. And so I set the bar extremely high. So what gets me to do it? It's just the responsibility that I have to do it. I mean, I'm very visible because we're on television all the time. We coach basketball, but I'm not very important. I'm no more important than my son's 6th grade teacher. But you know what? She's important for that reason. And for that reason, I guess, so am I.
That's an amazing philosophy. Not many people have that. They're so focused on wins and losses, particularly in this profession.
Right.
Clearly, you're judged by
Right.
that. But I sense that's not your barometer of success.
Well, wins and losses will determine whether or not it can continue to work. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I understand the bottom line, so therefore, I'm going to work hard to make sure that we,
that you win. Sure.
What's required. I think there's a lot of good coaches out there, and I'm probably not much better than most of them. But if there's an area that I do try and take advantage of, it is my ability to communicate, is my ability to motivate, is my ability to connect and try to make a difference in their life. And so therefore, you got to go to your strengths. What do we try to do as a teacher? We try to get our kids to go to their strengths and hide their weaknesses. And I guess that's what I do in coaching.
Coming up next on Head Coach.
I'm just going to give this family the shirt off my back. It may not be the best shirt, and I may not be the best coach, but it will be the best that I have to give.
Coach's Fact is proudly brought to you by Carpets of Dalton, the world's largest floor covering store. Fans around East Tennessee took notice of what Bruce Pearl and the Volunteers were doing on the court at Thompson Bowling Arena. Tennessee's average attendance in '06 was 17,900, an increase of 5,500 fans per game, which represented the largest jump in attendance in the nation. The Vols had the 5th highest average attendance nationally.
You talked a great deal about your family. How, with the time constraints and the pressures of this job,
Right.
how do you prioritize your family? How do you do it?
Well, I don't do much else other than my job and my family. So I don't have anything else that really distracts me. I'm married well. I outkicked my coverage, and I did so in many ways.
My family's important to my family. Family's very important to his family, and when you move a lot, they're essentially your core. Now, in our situation, we drag our coaches with us everywhere. So, our current staff, their family.
Yeah.
Because and you trust them, and they're true to you, and you're true to them.
I've been married 24 years, and I do talk to young people, and I say it's about trust and it's about commitment. And so there's going to be some bumps in the road along the way, but as long as you have trust and as long as you are committed, and when you say for better or worse, you better mean it.
He's worried right now because in Indiana and Milwaukee, he got out a lot to see our kids, but the schedule here, the pace exponentially just goes off the chart. The pace here is crazy.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
How big a jump has it been?
Everybody knows who you are. It's really it's kind of weird.
There's no hiding in Knoxville?
No, there's no hiding in Knoxville. I go in the grocery store, there's this 6-foot-tall cutout poster of my husband on the Diet Coke. I called my friend. I'm like, this is the strange. I'm standing here, and he's looking at me in the store.
I surround my players with my kids. I bring the kids to practice. My children have always traveled with me on the road, and even when they were younger, it almost grounds me when, you know, you're on the road and there's so much at stake on a game, and you know you got your 5-year-old with you, and you got to cut their food and, you know, and put them to sleep and do different things like that, and sometimes it puts the winning and the losing into perspective. So now there's not as much quality time as there ought to be, but hopefully that we make up for it in quality.
Now you also have an interesting dynamic. You have a son who's a walk-on.
Yeah, isn't that a kick in the head? That decision was made independent of the mother.
Is that right?
Yes. I don't think it's a good idea. He's excited and working really hard, and we'll see how it plays out.
It's probably a greater source of pressure for him than it is for me, in the sense that he's got no margin for error. I mean, it's okay for me that I have no margin for error. I'm 46 years old. Yeah. He's just 18, where you have a tendency to live and learn, and he can't make a mistake, and I'm really proud of it, because you talk about a lesson. The bar is really raised for him at this level.
He had a great senior year in high school.
Yes, he did.
All state's pretty good.
Yeah, but his father didn't coach him in high school.
Yeah.
His father went to a game, and we had a little trouble being quiet.
A little free advice?
Yeah, a little free advice. But we'll see. You know, if they keep it in perspective and keep the relationship separate, then it should work out okay. I
won't put him on the floor until he's ready, and he knows that. I'm going to play the best, and yet at the same time, I'm going to play the best players, and it doesn't matter if you're a manager or you walk on. If you are better than a scholarship player, you know, by golly, you'll be out there.
Are you anticipating more stress because of that?
Yeah, I told Bruce he was going to have to buy me a condo downtown, because when I needed to get away from the two of them. So we'll see.
It'll be constant back and forth?
We'll see. I hope it works out well for both of them.
When you're going into a living room of a family who has a recruit you're after, what do you say? What's your philosophy? How do you talk to those parents?
Well, first of all, you know, our athletic director, Mike Hamilton, asked me, he said, Coach, what's your greatest challenge here at Tennessee? And I told him, recruiting. So then Mike would then say, well, how so? You know, in what way is it your greatest challenge? I said, me. I'm your greatest challenge. I'm Bruce Pearl, who spent a lot of years in Division II, who has only been a high major coach for 1 year. And I'm going in the same living room that Billy Donovan's coming in right afterwards. And Roy Williams just left, and Mike Krzyzewski's coming to next week. And how can I even compare? And I can't.
Recruiting is communication. It's also a number of other things, but communication, and especially interpersonal communication, and Bruce is the best at that.
As far as what I say in a living room, I'm just going to give this family the shirt off my back. It may not be the best shirt, and I may not be the best coach, but it will be the best that I have to give. And hopefully that'll be good enough.
He does a good job of selling, first and foremost, being a parent. And when you as a parent is losing your son, you want someone to kind of like take the baton.
Sure.
And that's his mindset right from the start, that he tells him that he's going to treat him just like his own son.
We're not going to exploit him. We're not going to do so at the expense of allowing him to not take care of his business academically, or to be able to look the other way when he behaves the wrong way off the court, because I do expect them to be role models. We have that responsibility. And to see that I put them in position, you know, to be successful on the basketball court.
The sense also that I get is he has them over to the house. I mean, is that true?
Yeah.
Are they always over there?
Oh, yeah. Not always, because they can't be. You know, NCAA rules and all that jazz. It's occasional meal, but yeah, I told them on their first visit, don't knock, because I'll think I don't know you and I won't answer the door, or I won't hear it.
Just walk in.
Walk in, and they do.
They are a part of the family, aren't they?
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, the guys are over the house a lot. Sunday is a day when if they want to come over and do some studying or watch a football game or just go to sleep on the couch, and occasionally we're allowed to feed them when we do so. And Kim is very, very good about that.
The reason he is so successful is he knows what it takes to win. He knows the time required, and he's not willing to lose. You know, if you're around him and after a loss, he's just completely drained. And he feels like he's let the players down, and he feels like he's let the fans down.
Does he come home after a loss and just go to pieces? Does he, what's he like after a loss?
Well, it depends on when you lose. If you lose like Wednesday, you got to turn the page quickly because usually you play Saturday. What is not fun is losing on the weekend and then having like the majority of the week and Sunday to sit through it, because we watch tape. You know, he'll yell at the TV, and it's just so not fun. But I do suggest that if you're going to lose on one of those early part of the week things where we transition quickly out of that loss.
Scheduled losing. I think that's
there you go.
There you go.
So it's a different way to think about it. But don't ruin my Sunday. We don't get many days together. Don't ruin Sunday.
You've solved the family problem.
I did.
Just schedule your losses.
That's right.
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll fly in volunteer land,
but yeah, we can try it.
One of my sales pitches to Bruce was, this fan base is waiting to explode.
They sure
It
are.
will give them the opportunity to have something to explode over.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, last year we gave them that, and obviously went out and signed a great recruiting class, and the future is very bright for Tennessee men's basketball.
Anywhere in the country, when you participate at a high level, is what have you done for me lately. What we want to do is maintain a level of consistency. I think that's our biggest challenge here at the University of Tennessee.
I think that we had to show support for men's basketball, put legs behind what we were saying, and then hire the right leader of the ship. And I clearly believe that Bruce Pearl's the right leader of that ship.
What's the future holds for you? What's the future holds for Tennessee basketball?
The future was Bruce Pearl and Tennessee a one-year wonder? You know, is this something that's we can count on? And I'd like to say that our basketball teams will beat everybody we're supposed to beat and occasionally beat some that we're not. And so as long as I can continue to get our talent to be good enough to be competitive in the league, I feel like we can be competitive in the league. Everything else is here. It's a great college town. I mean, it's kind of neat. And it's a place where student athletes come from all over the country to train, both in the classroom and on the court, to be in the Olympics, to win championships. And as long as I can continue to surround my athletes around the other great athletes, men and women that come to Tennessee, I think we can keep this going.